mentioned migration, migrants. Is that what you see in this painting?
They don't know if the boat would even succeed to get to their destination.
It's really interesting to have the Kehinde Wiley painting interrupting, as Wiley wants his works to do, in a museum.
I think this is a pivotal moment in history, I would say.
So, Joseph, we're here today in front of Kehinde Wiley's Ship of Fools, which the museum acquired with the assistance of the Art Fund in 2017. And we're sat here today in the King's Presence Chamber, a very elaborate and ornate room here at the Queen's House in Greenwich. And whenever we meet, we can't stop talking about this painting.
And there's so much in this painting that we could see, and we're going to hopefully dive in shortly in what I see.
Should I give you a bit of an overview of Kehinde Wiley's background?
Yeah.
So he was born in South Central LA, and his mother is African American. She grew up in LA, but his father was from Nigeria and actually got a scholarship to America to study architecture. Now, unfortunately, he had to go back to Nigeria, and so Kehinde's mother brought up him and his 6 siblings, including his twin brother.
Yes.
And actually, yes, you mentioned something about Kehinde's name.
Yeah, so I'm also Nigerian and born in Sweden, but I'm Nigerian. With my parents are from Nigeria, and they've always taught us like the culture and how important names are. You know, every name, a Nigerian name that you have has a meaning, a deep meaning. And Kehinde Wiley is a twin. He's the second twin. Kehinde means second born of a twin.
Okay.
So, and then his twin's name is Taiwo. So anytime you hear Taiwo or Kehinde, it's a twin name in Nigeria.
So his mother brought up Kehinde, his twin, his siblings, in LA, and they really struggled financially. She ran a thrift shop, I think, but she didn't actually have a physical shop. She sold items from the front yard, and Kehinde and his siblings helped out. And then what I think is really interesting and key to his later success is that she used to send him to art school, him and his twin. And they traveled, I think, 2 hours on a bus to art school, 2 hours back. And that was so transformative for him. And he also went to the libraries and museums and galleries in LA and partook in learning programs and was able to study, the art in those collections, including some of the kind of, famous old master artists who he often riffs off through his work. And that's something that we speak about a lot because so many of his paintings are kind of taking inspiration from the greats, the canonical white artists who have formed the Western canon of painting, of portraiture. And that's something that he's also doing in this painting here.
Yeah, I feel like he actually embraces the old works, the historic works, and what he tries to do is not paint them just, it has to be beautiful. Yeah. But he wants people to understand that he's trying to communicate to our virtues and really embrace the past and the future. And that's basically what's going on here. And that's one of his key things to do in his works.
And I think as well as embrace, he also used a word which I found really interesting, which was interrupt. He's I like to embrace the canon and interrupt it. And here, he's actually riffing off a painting which is in the Louvre by Hieronymus Bosch, who's a Netherlandish 15th century, 16th century artist. And that is a painting called The Ship of Fools, hence why the painting takes its title from that work. And I think The Ship of Fools is an allegory which is, it emerged, I think, in Plato's Republic, and obviously Bosch and other artists and writers have used that theme over the years. And basically it's about a group of people who are commandeering a boat and they have no clue. So I think it's an allegory about bad government, bad leadership, arrogance.
Yeah.
But why is Kehinde Wiley used that title here, do you think?
I feel like, you know, in his works recently, he's done a lot of like replacing figures. Like he's used black figures in all his work from the old works. And I feel like he's trying to do it in a contemporary way as well. Not even trying, he has actually succeeded in producing this work in a contemporary way. And if you look at the image itself, you could see some of the clothing, which is something that it's relatively now. He wants us to really understand that there's a change. And what is the change? And what are the things that we need to question? You know, I see a lot of things such as migration. I see travelers. I see, you know, like the little boy looking away. You know, there's a lot of things going on in this painting. And then in the middle of it, we have the tree. And one thing that I remember discussing this with you last time was that the tree is not fully like formed in terms of the leaves. There's a part on the left-hand side, for instance, has more greenery compared to the other side. And that's a question there, you know? And I feel like what he's trying to do in his work is for us to not just look at it as a nice, beautiful piece, or he just, you know, disrupt a painting, but it's more of what is there we need to think about? What is there we need to think about for our society? And I think that's what he's trying to do here.
You very helpfully touched upon, you know, all of the kind of key iconographic elements of this painting, the boat, the people, the tree, which I think we'll work through. But can we return back to the people? Because you mentioned migration, migrants. Is that what you see in this painting? Do you think that they are, you know, refugees, migrants?
These are people, in my opinion, in what I'm seeing, are people who are looking for a new experience, a new life in the western side of the world. Excitement, you know, fleeing away from something, and they will do whatever it takes to get there. I mean, we've heard a lot of news as well, where you know, you get a lot of people fleeing from their countries. And the boats that, you know, they don't know if the boat would even succeed to get to their destination. And so they take risks. And what we're seeing here, first of all, we can see that the boat is not really fully intact. There's a bit of brokenness in there. You know, there's just one, what's it called? Is it paddle? You know, these are people who are ready to take risk in hoping for a better life somewhere. And that's what I'm seeing in the faces of the people. The child, for me personally, I can kind of relate to that. You know, their uncertainty, the uncertainty of where is my life taking me? It seems like that's what's happening with this child here. You know, he's got the bandage in his right leg, on his knee. It tells me he's gone through stuff.
I agree, and it's, you know, the bandage on his leg kind of alludes to the fact that perhaps he is a refugee and he's escaping war or famine or humanitarian crisis. You know, there are so many possibilities, as we know just by reading the news today. But yeah, he's looking back perhaps at the land that he's left, that he might not ever return to. But he's looking back, whereas, as you said, there is an element of excitement, I think, in the two figures of the two women here, which are more towards your side. And when we've spoken about this painting before, I've said that I wasn't quite sure whether they were like hysterical in a negative way or in an excited way. And I am convinced by your reading of them being hopeful for a new life, do you think?
I feel like, you know, we don't know what they're talking about. They might be bantering or something.
Yeah,
But for me, when you see this, you see that, you know, they're hopeful for a new life. They're hopeful for the journey that they're in, you know.
Yeah.
It seems like they don't even care about, you know, it seems like it's a bit stormy. Like you can tell like the water is a bit, you know, for me, if I was in that position, I'd be like, I can't swim, number one, and I don't know what's going to happen to me. But to them, they're very hopeful, and it seems like they have a faith that we're going to get to our destination.
Yeah.
And, you know, let's have fun in this journey.
We're going to have a new life.
We're going to have a new life, you know. But then when you look at the guy, you know, for me, that also tells me a lot about young black individuals that live in this world, that we have something that we want to contribute, you know, and it's very contemporary. The reason why I say that, because I remember saying this last time, is his watch that he's wearing. You know, he's got his top off because maybe he's been paddling, he's been pushing the boat, whatever. And he's also in a place of reflecting, you know, will people accept me? Yeah. Would I be able to be vulnerable? Would I be able to really be open as a black man?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's what I'm kind of seeing in this painting itself.
Yeah.
And for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, he looks so resolute, doesn't he? His face is kind of, you know, staring ahead out to the sea, the tumultuous sea, which could take their lives at any moment, but there is the possibility of a new life, we think, at the end of this. But also, you alluded before to the paddle, to the oar, which he's brandishing kind of in the air, right?
Yeah.
But there's only one paddle, and we always talk about this. And how are they going to steer the boat through this storm with just one paddle?
See, I don't know, but I feel like anytime I look at this painting, there's more ideas, there's more sort of direction that this is going. It almost feels like he's done what he needed to do already, and it's allowing the boat to steer their destiny.
Okay, yeah, that's such an interesting reading.
So it's like, you know, I've worked hard now, I've done what I need to do, I want to just allow life to take its course.
Yeah. Such is the hope that they know that they, you know, they might only have one oar, but if they trust in, you know, in the boat taking them to their new life. And, you know, that kind of hopeful message comes through, as we always talk about with the ship, which has this tree coming from it, which is an impossible scenario, you know? Yeah,
tree of life. I feel, before we even go into the tree of life, another thing that kind of resonated with me with, you know, with the paddling, with the oar, that he's done his work already. And I feel like in today's society, as a black person, we have to work harder than anyone else, you know, in order to get to where we need to get to. And that's like with myself, I'm sure most people can relate to that, is that we have to work harder compared to others who are privileged to be in a certain place. And that also resonates to me, that dialogue of a black person working harder than anyone else to get to where they need to get to. And then when we link up to the tree of life, it's like the tree of life is the main source of their life. That tree needs to be with them. And that's the uncertainty again with the, you know, is the tree gonna survive? Is the tree part of the boat? Is it where it grows from? And this is their culture. It's like they're almost bringing their culture to where they need to get to. So the tree of life is part of their identity, and they need to bring that with them. If it's not with them, they wouldn't know their identity. They wouldn't, you know, in terms of, you know, bringing a legacy to the next generation and so forth. And as you know, tree has a long longevity, a long lifespan. And it's almost the same thing as the culture, and you have to bring it. You know, I remember when I was young, my mum was always talking about the culture to me. And at that time, I really didn't want to listen, I didn't want to hear about it. But now it's been instilled and sewn into me that right now, currently, I'm so interested about my culture. I really want to know more, I really want to expand more. And I feel like that's what the tree of life is kind of part of in this painting that Kehinde Wiley has done.
Yeah, they're taking part of their culture, part of their land with them on this tumultuous journey to a new life. The tree is very prominent in the painting. However, there is another element of the painting which we should talk about, which is not so obvious. And I think we have the great privilege of being up close to the painting today. But when visitors come in and they, glance at it, they don't always notice the ship, which is in the background of the painting. And of course, here we are in the Queen's House, which has the National Maritime Museum's collection of maritime art. And, you can walk throughout the Queen's House and see a multitude of ships. But here, it's really hidden in the backdrop of the painting. What does that symbolise to you?
I'm laughing now because I'm just realising it's almost like when rappers go at each other, for instance, they tend to send shots against each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost like this is like a subliminal way, an indirect way to insert that particular theme. That's definitely somewhat a slave ship,
Right. Yeah.
And it now wants us to talk about, even though it's in the background, it's kind of almost faded. The sky is kind of grey, it's very dark. And it's almost like, let's not forget about the transatlantic slave trade and the Middle Passage. Let's not forget about that. You know what I mean? Like these were the ships that came to Africa to collect a lot of enslaved individuals back to the Western world. And I feel like it's let's not forget about this.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about what happened to us, because that's something that we won't never forget. And he's kind of done it in a very beautiful way. It was only, like you said, when you look close up to it, you can see the true works of the painting, where he's really put a lot of details into it, and it's almost like, have these guys seen that boat? No, maybe not.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't even ever thought about that. We've only talked about the viewer reading that, but are they figures
aware
in the
of
painting aware of it?
Yeah.
As you say, one can't not look at that ship and think about the transatlantic slave trade and the legacies of that, and the legacies of colonialism, which of course impact on the current refugee crisis. And I think it's really important for us to have it on display here in the Queen's House at Royal Museums Greenwich, when, we're currently in a room surrounded by portraits of naval officers. We've got Charles I, kind of staring at us from across the room here in direct dialogue with this painting. And, we've walked around the Queen's House before and looked at portraits of British heroes who've been eulogised, throughout history books, but were slave owners. And we're trying to talk about that more in the interpretation and more to visitors and school children who come to the gallery. But it's really interesting to have the Kehinde Wiley painting interrupting, as Wiley wants his works to do, in a museum such as this.
Yeah, I think it's very key. I think this is a pivotal moment in history, I would say. And I feel like in years to come, everyone will know about Kehinde Wiley. Everyone will know what he's tried to do and what he has achieved and what he has actually done. And it's also a good moment that this particular piece is sitting here in this museum. And I'm hoping that there will be more of these kind of series, more of these kind of disrupt paintings, almost disrupting the history of all these works that there is here at the Maritime Museum. And I feel like he's done a great job. He's done an absolutely great job in what he's done here. And this is just the beginning.